Everybody, this is Dream, and this is going to be a massive 12-game slate on DraftKings. It starts at 7 o'clock tonight. This is the main slate. We have a huge set of games, lots of pitchers to look at, lots of batters to look at, and I've tried to narrow them down and get you some of the best options available on the slate. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. So from the pitching perspective, so we have some dubious situations. Basically, we have good pitchers against good teams. So like Robbie Ray, who's the best pitcher on the slate, he's going up against the Atlanta Braves, which is a tough team to win against. Now they are at Seattle, so that should help him a little bit, but he's still in a tough matchup here. Atlanta's been hitting the ball extremely well, and they're trying to stay with the Mets, in the run for the lead in the NL East. I still like him though. He's got high strikeout capability, but he is a little bit risky on DraftKings simply because of the matchup situation. Similar thing can be said about Charlie Morton. He's been playing really well as well as of late, but he's going up against a pretty tough team in Seattle, and he's obviously on the road as well, which he hasn't pitched quite as well on the road as he has at home. Um, but he's still in a pretty good position. Overall, I think both the pitchers are people you have to be able to consider on this particular slate. Another couple guys that I like, Lance McCullers against the Angels. He's got the risk of having to deal with Trout and Otani, but there's not much else on this Angels team that are going to be a huge threat. So I think that he's in a situation where he could definitely take advantage of it. I look for him to be in the 20 to 25 point range potentially in this game, but you do have to be aware that he may not go super deep in the game. His longest is 6 innings so far this season. So, anyhow, the next guy that I think is interesting is Nick Lodolo for the Cincinnati Reds. Now, this isn't a great matchup for him against Milwaukee, but he does have some potential in this game. He's been playing some games pretty well. It isn't at Cincinnati, which is actually an advantage for him because at Cincinnati it's pretty difficult. But overall, he has a little bit of potential here. He's kind of a Hail Mary option at pitcher, but there's not a ton of great pitching available today. And finally, Luis Garlito for the Chicago White Sox. He doesn't have the upside of some of his teammates, but he's still in a pretty good position against Oakland. I don't know that he'll last too deep in the game, but he does have tendency to get some strikeouts, a decent amount of strikeouts against some bad teams, and this is the type of situation where he could end up giving up a run or two, getting like 7 strikeouts in 5 innings, and get you, 15 to 25 points. I don't think he is. I don't think he has very high upside, but I think he's somebody you got to kind of consider just because of the situations. I thought about Montas and Rasmussen, but their matchups are kind of bad overall, and they haven't been particularly great. And honestly, most of these other guys, I mean, we got Patrick Corbin pitching today, but there's a lot of dudes that are kind of in a similar situation, that aren't very good, that are pitching against good teams. We have, Minnesota against Bundy. We got Arizona against Zach Davies. We've got Milwaukee against Alexander. Detroit against Wentz. I mean, so Austin Voss has actually been pitching okay, but he's just not very good overall. We got Texas against Dane Dunning, excuse me. We got Toronto against Ross Stripling. He used to be a pitcher I really liked, but he's hadn't really had it this season so much. He's had some good games, but he hasn't been quite as good as we'd like, especially against good teams. Yeah, we just it's a tough slate at catcher or at pitcher. I'm sorry. With that said, let's go ahead and get into the next catcher's situation. All right, so my overall favorite option here is actually Mr. Haas for the Detroit Tigers. He's actually been hitting the ball really well, 353, 8 fantasy points a game, last 10 with 2 home runs. He's got some nice upside against Lynch in this matchup. NJ Melendez is a guy I like pretty good as well. Obviously, he's a little bit more expensive, but he's got 7.2 last 10 games, and I think he's in a good position. You could also say Perez, if depending on who starts, either one of them are in a good position to do well. Obviously, Perez is actually in a lot better position because he's been hitting a lot better, but overall, both of them are in plus position. One thing I'll notice about this particular slate, the prices on DraftKings on players have really risen in the last couple days. I mean, I don't know if it's just, I'm not exactly certain why, but I just feel like everybody's expensive right now. Sean Murphy has been playing really good for Oakland, and he's got a nice match against Goalito. Honestly, like I like Goalito, but I also think that there's a couple guys on Oakland that can get to him, and he's one of them. JT Realmuto has absolutely been tearing up the ball uh, lately. Sorry about that, Realmuto. He's going up against Corbin, and he's been somebody I really like. His game log has been really good lately. He's had a lot of 15 to 20 point games, and he's been really good this season overall. Another guy I like, okay, and these are kind of secondary picks. Elias Diaz for Colorado. He's very much better at home than he is on the road, as you can see. And he's been okay the last few games, but he's kind of due for a home run again. And what a better place to do it than at home against Arizona pitching. And then Carson Kelly is also in a good spot in a plus matchup, and I think he's somebody you have to consider. I still like Eric Haas the most as a cheap option, but those two guys are, kind of secondary alternates. For first base, I have Luke Voigt for Washington against Syndergaard. Voigt's been hitting the ball really well, 7.9 the last 10 with 282. Then we have Taglaya for Colorado against Davies. He's been averaging 8 points for the last 10, for his first 9 games, but he's had some really big games, and so he's basically had 4 or 5 games where his price would make sense to roster him. So I think out of those 9, that's pretty good. Mountcastle is a guy I really like in this particular matchup against Bello, and he's been absolutely murdering the ball lately. I really like what he's doing. Christian Walker is a guy I like here as well at this position. There's quite a bit at first base, I'll tell you, that's really good. Walker at 9.7 last 10, 394. He's probably one of my favorite options here. And then also Vlad Jr. For the Toronto Blue Jays. The 7.8 last 10 games, obviously super expensive. And last but not least, Jose Abreu. He's been hitting the ball pretty well lately, and I think he can continue against Oakland, who's just not got very good pitching. 7.2 with 341 in the last 10. Super good. So at second base, my first guy that I'm going to mention is Spencer Steer. He's, only 6 games in, but he's had 3 games where he's basically given you enough points for his price today, and then he's got 3 games where he hadn't. That's pretty good odds, and he's going against a terrible pitcher, so that's a benefit for us as well. Gunnar Henderson is a guy that has kind of cooled off from the start, but he still has the potential, and he's somebody you could choose to utilize at second or third base. Luis Garcia for the Washington Nationals has it's interesting situation here. He's been pretty good this season, but he hasn't played. He's only he's actually doing good now. Sorry, I had him mixed up with a different guy. I had him listed though. I just had the little write-up inverted. He's been playing pretty well, and he really just hits he really hits right now. 304 and 9 fantasy points a game. He really came up high on my projections today, so he's somebody to consider. Segura for the Philly. He's been a little bit hit and miss lately, but he's gone up against Mr. Corbin. That's always an advantage for us, and so I definitely like him in this particular situation. And then Josh Rojas for Arizona. I think a lot of people are going to try to stack some of the Arizona players. He's averaging 7.4, but he's also only hitting 198. But, Colorado can cure things like that. And then Jonathan India for Cincinnati. He's been hitting the ball extremely well. 385, 8.6 last 10 games. Really like what he's doing. At third base, I have kind of a couple Hail Marys to start off with. One of them is Edmundo Sosa for Philadelphia against Corbin. He's been actually hitting the ball extremely well lately. He's had 2 home runs in the last 10 games, his first 2 of the season, in fact. And he's averaging 8.9 with 407 with a 417 batting average in those last 10. So I like him quite a bit. And then we have a guy that hasn't actually even played a game yet, Josh Jung. This guy played 22 games in AAA, and he hit 274, 317, 526 with 6 home runs, 24 RBIs, 14 runs, and a stolen base. I think he's in a position where he can come in and be an immediate. They feel the Rangers think he can come in and be a immediate threat. And so I think that you could take a flyer on him for $2,000, save yourself some money for some other positions, and hopefully get some points out of him. And you don't need a ton of points out of him either in that situation. Another guy I like is, let's see. Oh, accidentally. Okay, duh, he's not playing. Gunnar Henderson, I already mentioned. Yoan Makoda for Chicago White Sox. He absolutely just had a monster game, 47 points. He went 5-5, 2 home runs. And he hadn't been all that great all season, but he's really been picking it up the last few games that he's played, and he's been doing pretty good. So I think he's somebody you have to take into consideration. Alec Boom is somebody that's been playing pretty well. He's been averaging 7.4 and 300, and he's having some big games as well. And this nice little Corbin matchup is good for him. Josh Rojas, who I already mentioned, and then Bobby Witt Jr. Now he's super expensive, but he's also been hitting the ball for points. But he's kind of hit and miss on the batting average. But he's had some really nice big games. He's been actually pretty consistent, despite the batting average. So at shortstop, I again have Edmundo Sosa, who I mentioned, and Javier Baez, and Bobby Witt. And then my favorite pick at this position, Elvis Andrus. He has absolutely been playing well. 326 with 12 fantasy points a game. He had 23 yesterday, too. Hit a home run. He's really been hitting the ball great. And so the way Chicago's playing, keep getting that guy in the game. Jeez. Javier Baez has been good. The other guy that I really like right today, too, is Xander Bogaerts. Now, he is day-to-day, so you have to be aware of that. But he's probably going to play in this one. He is absolutely, look at all these 10-plus games. He's just been absolutely phenomenal lately. So I hope that he gets to play because he's definitely somebody I want to put in the lineup. Then for outfielders, we have a lot of good outfielders available. Some are in some tough matchups, but to start off with some secondary options, Matt Verling for the Philly, he's actually been hitting the ball 300. He's not a giant like home run hitter, but he can still hit some occasionally. He's got the Patrick Corbin game, and I'd like to see him continue to do good. Then I have Tuglia for Colorado, who I already mentioned. And then one of my favorite options today is Jake McCarthy for Arizona against Colorado. He's averaging 11.5 the last 10. You can see that he's been pretty consistent. I like him in this matchup, and I think he's got to be one of my top picks for this position, or for the outfielders today. Max Kepler is somebody I like quite a bit, although he is day-to-day as well, so you do have to take that into consideration. Jake Fraley has been hitting the ball pretty well for Cincinnati. He's a home run threat every time he comes up to bat, and he does also have good games outside of just hitting the home runs, so we definitely like him as an option. David Peralta is somebody that I actually found that has been hitting the ball pretty well lately. Got a little plus matchup today against the Yankees. I think he's somebody you have to consider. And then my home run call of the day is Well, Verdugo's not yet, not the home run call yet. I'm just getting ahead of myself. Verdugo is a guy. He's been hitting 9.7302 the last 10. I really like what he's been doing. And McCutcheon as well. He was in a big slump for a little while, and all of a sudden he's broke out of it. So I really like what he's doing now, and I look for him to be in a good spot against Ledudlo. And then Kyle Tucker I like as a good option against the Los Angeles Angels, who won't really have much of an answer for him from the pitching perspective. And then my home run call of the day is Mr. Dalton Varsho against Colorado. He's absolutely been killing the ball. Just absolutely having lots of good games. He has a couple bad games in there, but he's just playing really well, and I like guys that play really well that are home run threats. Obviously, he's pretty expensive here, just I don't know what the pricing deal is over here on DraftKings. It seems like everybody's gone up, but I got a couple more guys to mention. Cedric Mullins is somebody I really like for Baltimore and against Boston, though he hasn't hit a home run. He's hit 2 home runs recently, but not. He hadn't been very consistent